Man,
And we are back with episode 10 of the Big Break Big Ten podcast, coming at you guys with all the hot takes here in the Big Ten, covering all of our football, basketball, and other minute sports that you might not think about, hockey, lacrosse, and all the above. We got actually a packed filled show tonight or this morning here for everyone. A lot to get through, so let's dive into it. I want to start off with the transfer portal, guys. There's been a lot of names going in there, and a lot of transferring within the Big Ten themselves. We've seen a lot of a couple Ohio State guys go into the portal, a couple of Michigan guys going into the portal, but it seems like they're all landing in that one spot in Des Moines, Iowa. Um, Drew, why don't you start us off here with your opinion on the transfer portal, and what's been going on here that we've seen in this quote unquote second half of the transfer portal, right? Because you have your winter session and now you're in the spring session of the transfer portal, the second half I like to call it. Um, Drew, go ahead.
yeah. So as you mentioned, a lot of activity this past week, especially in the Big Ten. Sparty with kind of a mass exodus. Peyton Thorne leaving was pretty big. Noah Kim now steps in as the for sure starter, I would assume, on week
Who?
one. Noah Kim. Oh, exactly who. And then Keon Coleman, big loss for Sparty. Arguably the best wide receiver in the portal currently. 4-star. I heard from sources that Coleman entered the portal because he was afraid that Peyton Thorne was going to kill his draft stock, which is kind of a fair thing to think. I mean, you kind of look at Jaden Reed, who went in the second round this past year, but whatever. Um,
Hey, I
yeah,
mean,
I
if you're
mean,
trying to go in the first round, that's hurting your
yeah,
draft stock, right?
yeah, and Thorne's not exactly elite
No. And
quarterback, so
and especially for Keon Coleman, when you're one of the top rated, one of the in the top 10, I would assume, of Big Ten wide receivers, and you're looking up, and you see at the top of that list is Marvin Harrison Jr. You're like, I don't think I could deal with Thorne for another year. I need to improve my draft stock. Am I wrong with thinking that's what he's was looking at?
that's yeah, I mean that's what I heard. And it makes sense, like I said. So it'll be interesting to see where Coleman goes. He hasn't landed anywhere yet. Um, but there's so many transfers. Ohio State losing those two receivers was pretty big. Um, but then
Absolutely.
they but then they brought in a phenomenal offensive lineman, Josh Simmons from San Diego State, and a 4-star wide receiver to replace one of those two, and Lorenzo Styles from Notre Dame.
Now that
But
was actually a one that I was surprised of. Him coming to Columbus after his stint there in South Bend. With Styles coming to Ohio State as a wide receiver, especially with the wide receiver room that Ohio State has, that Brian Hartline has consistently recruited at a high level. It's just that was a surprise to me to see a wide receiver saying, "Hey, I want to come be in that bit, that crowded party."
mhm. Styles is from Pickerington,
Makes
so
sense too. Makes
just
sense. He
coming
wants to
home, I
come
think.
home. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There
don't.
there is I just want to get your guys' opinion on this here while we're talking um a little bit about Ohio State. Davidson Igbonson, the he's a corner from Ole Miss, transferred in to Ohio State, and then they also got a big offensive lineman from or they got a like that big offensive lineman Josh Simmons from um what, San Diego State, right? Yeah.
SDSU. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
San Diego State. Talk a little bit about those guys.
Well, Simmons is big time. He should be a starter. Obviously, the offensive line looked like a problem for Ohio State during spring, so that was a big land for them.
Definitely. Corey, your thoughts on the transfers so far?
I mean, I guess Iowa just wants everybody's backups. Is what it seems like. I mean, no, I mean, I think we talked about it on previous episodes. The transfer portal kind of defines college football. Players transfer, feel like they can get a new start somewhere else. I think Iowa's building maybe something special, getting Caleb Brown, having Cade McNamara, Eric All, rumors about a few other players potentially maybe going there. Um, it's kind of what we expect from college football. You know, teams go out instead of, you know, these smaller school guys feel like they want to get drafted, they have to transfer somewhere to a bigger school. They go where a need is. For instance, an offensive lineman, big time offensive lineman, a top probably 3 or 4 offensive linemen in the transfer portal says, oh, okay, Ohio State looks like they're struggling on the offensive line. I'm a plug and play guy. I'm going there. I'm going to start right away. I'm going to be a top 50 draft pick because I played on Ohio State's offensive line last year that was contending for a national title. So, Ohio State struggled on the back end of their defense last year. So going to get a good proven corner in the SEC, I think is something that they were probably looking for.
Absolutely.
Having it's just kind of about need. Michigan lost 2 offensive linemen. They got 2 offensive linemen in the transfer portal. They lost a wide receiver. They've gained a couple other younger guys. It's just kind of the nature of the transfer portal, and a big part of it is NIL too.
Right.
Now, okay, good. Ethan, I want to get your opinion here because I know you're a Sparty guy. Um,
Yeah.
we had Sparty's been active in the transfer portal with replacing guys who've left their program. Go ahead and go over those the Sparty transfers here for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of action going on up in East Lansing as it is. What I did find interesting with Peyton Thorne going and leaving for Auburn, and what, Keon Coleman rumors are about him possibly having his draft stock dampened by that. He's going to visit Auburn today. So I don't know if you were that threatened by Peyton. Not saying Peyton Thorne's a guarantee a starter down at Auburn, but the guy that's going to hamper your draft stock, you're going to go possibly play with again. Like, I don't see how that. Those 2 reports seem a little conflicting to me. They did pick up punter from Ohio State back in February, Michael O'Shaughnessy. And if this mass exodus continues, he's going to see a lot of action this year.
Shaq
Uh,
Hennessy.
yeah. They did pick up Amarian Smith, safety out of Cincinnati University. He'll probably compete for that defensive backfield that was burned quite a few times last year. Of course, they also had those disciplinary issues from what happened in Michigan up in Ann Arbor, which I have my own thoughts on at that time. I'm a little biased against that one there. Charles Brantley did pull back. He is staying, so hopefully that also keeps the depth going in the secondary. But I think that Sparty's definitely on some troubled times. Mass exodus. I don't know, man. Mel Tucker might feel seat get warmer and warmer as we approach August.
So we were actually, before we went live, we were actually talking about that, that type of thing. Corey mentioned it himself that if this season goes south for Michigan State, this could be Mel Tucker's last year in the at the helm there in East Lansing. Corey, you were the one who brought it to our attention. Go ahead, tell us why you came up with that.
I mean, I don't think you said if. I think it's when.
Okay.
I don't, after everyone's transferring out, obviously for him to put it together is going to be kind of rough with not a lot of leadership on that team. Uh, it's kind of obvious. They paid him top coach in the Big Ten money, and he produced one potential good season, and it was his first year when he had a bunch of leadership guys. It's one of those things where it just kind of feels like he's not recruiting at a high level. He's not. You would expect Michigan State to be in the top 25 recruiting rankings. They're not. You would expect them to be looking for the future guys. They're not. They could have owned the transfer portal with all the amount of guys that were in there. They didn't. It just seems like funding at Michigan State, they were solid all the time. And now they're going to be back to back not good. Doesn't work well in East Lansing.
Absolutely. I just want to touch on one thing you said there, though, Court, that popped out was you said he was one of the top coaches in the paid coaches in the Big Ten. He got like that type of a top tier salary. Bro, he was in the list of top coaches paid in the country, let alone just the Big Ten. I mean, he's making Nick Saban money for what?
Exactly.
So
I mean,
go ahead, Ethan. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, if you look at this contract, bruh,
Break it down.
I'm on
I know you're in the numbers
Boardroom.
guy.
Yeah, so I actually found it while we were talking on boardroom.tv. It says if the university chooses to fire Tucker for cause, it will owe him his entire non-performance related salary, which is $9.5 million per year through the term of his 2032 contract. He also has absolutely ridiculous bonuses. Division championship, 200,000. Big Ten championship win, 200,000. 25,000 to be Big Ten Coach of the Year. 50,000 for Coach of the Year in the nation. 125,000 if he makes. It's hard. The writing's a little interesting here. 125 for a non-New Year's Six bowl, or 250 for a New Year's Six bowl that doesn't count the CFP. He gets 275 for an appearance in the CFP and 300,000 for each additional CFP game played. So in this 12-team format, we're playing more games in the CFP. 275 to be in the 12, 300,000 for a win, 300,000 for a win, and he gets 500,000 for a natty.
They're still pretty far off from that.
Jesus.
Yeah, oh yeah,
I mean they're definitely far off on that. But Drew, you looked like you had something to add into that when he was going over it. You looked surprised. Yeah. Looked like you had some emotions flow through you. Lay it on me, Big Daddy.
Yeah, dude. I still don't understand why Mel Tucker got this job to begin with. Like, what he spent. Let's see here. He spent just under 10 years coaching in the NFL, running some defenses, defensive coordinator for the Browns, defensive coordinator for the Jags, DC for the Bears. After that, he goes and spends 1 year at Alabama and then 3 years as DC at Georgia, which is a big deal, 16 to 18. That's right when the kind of the rise starts of Georgia. Well, then he goes to Colorado for 1 year, goes 5-7. And the next year Sparty hires him. He goes 2-5. And then the year after COVID 21, he has that 11-win season and he gets this giant contract. It never made sense to me. Like, this dude has not won anything in his career.
I just want to, just a note to that. No, Drew, just
Sorry,
a
Mel.
note to that. I just want to point out, and I was looking up Mel Tucker's coaching history here as you were talking about it. He was the co-defensive coordinator for Ohio State in 2004 under Jim Tressel, okay? I just want to put this into perspective. Jim Tressel won at least won at least 10 games every year he was head coach at Ohio State except one. And that was 2004 when Mel Tucker was the co-defensive coordinator and they went 8-4 in their worst season. Now they still won a bowl game, but that was his year of being a co-defensive coordinator at a big college football program, and he shat the bed.
I don't think he was the main reason that you were 8-4 that year.
Well,
but But it's one of those things for me. Michigan State gave him that contract because he won 11 games that year. They thought it was going to produce 10-win season after 10-win season. That's what Michigan State does. They take a small coach, they believe in him, give him a contract, and I mean that's just kind of been what they did. They did it with D'Antonio, just kind of what they were looking for. Now, obviously, I don't think it worked out as well as they thought it was going to. I don't think I don't even though they owe him all that money, you can't just keep winning 4 or 5 games at Michigan State especially when the college football playoff is expanding, and it feels like 2, maybe 3 teams from the Big Ten potentially could make those 12-team fields. Potentially, if he's not one of those 2 or 3 teams, it's going to be a problem.
Absolutely, Drew. I got caught you on the back end of your Mel Tucker not being hired or wouldn't hire him thing. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think just one other point is that he's not recruiting at a high enough level to
He's
compete with the
recruiting?
big boys. Exactly. He had like 1 year where he worked the transfer portal, and then that produced that 11-win season. But
Okay.
since like the recruiting's not where it should be.
You have
Absolutely.
to be good at one or the other. You either own the transfer portal or you have good recruiting. It's either one or the other. Most coaches can kind of, when you're at a big school, can kind of do both, can kind of manage both, but he's not managing either one.
Mhm.
And I
Absolutely.
think
Go
that
ahead.
I think that also, and this may sound cliche, it could be out of left field, it could be completely wrong. I think Harbaugh's in his head. I think that Harbaugh lives rent free in Mel Tucker's head. He owns recruiting. He owns Michigan. And Mel Tucker came in at the bottom right before the Michigan spike. Mel Tucker was the king of Michigan, and now Harbaugh comes in. He was already there, but I mean, he comes in, he spikes this Michigan team to the top of the East in the Big Ten. There's the altercation last year on the field in the tunnel. I feel like basically he's now little brother. He gets beat around. If he's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth best coach in the Big Ten as it is, I think that he's just turned into a head case, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, I guess we're the Mel Tucker haters club now, and he's on his way out.
I All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up Michigan State here with this question before we move on to the other team in Michigan. Um, all right, guys, just a round table. I think we're probably on agreement, but if when Michigan State, I'm not going to say if, when Michigan State has a very disappointing season this year, Mel Tucker is out in East Lansing. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I
Yep.
suppose so.
All right. Let's go. Let's move on here to the other team in Michigan, the Wolverines, who is big brother up there to Sparty. They've had some movement as well in the transfer portal, bringing in a couple guys from Stanford. They've been active as well. Jim Harbaugh's been active up there, getting some depth, if you will, at some positions he may have lost. I'm gonna start with Corey on this. Um, there is to me a kind of a big name that came out. Obviously outside of Caden McNamara was Andrell Anthony, a wide receiver. He went to Oklahoma. Um, that's just one big name that stood out to me that the Wolverines have lost going into next season due to the transfer portal. Corey, kick us off here with the Wolverines and their transfer portal. What you've seen, what you've liked, type deals.
What I like is they bulked up on the line. They lost a few defensive linemen, they lost a few offensive linemen. They've got some depth there, some guys that potentially could beat out some young guys to start. The exodus of players, obviously quarterback, receivers, tight end. We've seen it kind of happen. There's been a few guys on the defensive end as well that were backups, potentially played a little bit and transferred out. I don't read too much into it. Andrew Anthony was a guy who they had a lot of upside. We thought he was going to potentially break the starting lineup, and Cornelius Johnson comes back. pretty much takes the spot that he was going to do. So I think Andrew Anthony had to transfer out as young guys were coming in. JJ McCarthy has a few teammates that he played in Florida with that are transferred in. So it just felt like, for me, Andrew Anthony leaving was better for him. Wish him all the best. He's going to be in a great offense in Oklahoma, and he'll flourish, I'm sure. They bulked up on the line. They got a few defensive line guys who I think are going to rotate in and be great players. Offensively, they lost AJ Henning, which I think hurts the special teams game. I hope he doesn't end up in Iowa like the rest of his teammates. But, I think AJ Henning hurts just from a special team standpoint. But again, I think he's a guy who wants to be drafted, a guy who needs more attention at the wide receiver, and he wasn't going to get it in.
Definitely. And I kind of agree with that as well. With your takes there. Anybody else who maybe surprised you that transferred out, or a guy that Jim Harbaugh got in the transfer portal that you maybe weren't expecting, Corey?
I wasn't expecting RJ Moten, the safety. He was kind of a back end third down guy, rotated in and out. He played sparingly last year, but obviously I didn't see him transferring out. Just especially since we're kind of young on the back end.
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt that was also a big loss, not a big loss, but more of a depth loss for Michigan when Morton decides he wants to take his talents down to Gainesville. Drew, you're wearing the hat, so we'll go to you next. What's your feelings here with the Wolverines and their transfer portal that they've made so far?
Yeah, I I think RJ Moten was the biggest for me, because I remember when he was being recruited, he was a 4-star when they recruited him. Corey said he's played sparingly, so that ratings dropped a little bit, but obviously he has potential. So it's tough to lose him, and then as well as Damani Dent, another safety who's currently undecided but in the transfer portal. AJ Henning is a big one as well. Yeah, nothing too crazy from Michigan, but yeah, nothing too crazy.
Oh, no worry. Alrighty, all right. Ethan, go ahead here with Big Brother up there in Michigan.
And nothing, I don't think there's any reason to sound alarm bells. I think it's just kind of your standard rotation. Guys trying to get one last look of being noticed. AJ Henning's probably one of the bigger names left out there from Michigan. I could see him going all kinds of different ways. I could see him going out to Iowa, joining up with Cade. I can see him pulling his name back out. I think he's talented enough kind of to do whatever he needs to do to make himself noticed. I don't know that he's going to work his way back up into round one status, but I think he's the biggest name out there. RJ Moten going out, heading to Florida. Again, not a whole lot difference there. I think that he'll definitely see some play time down in Florida. They're on their way back up from a rebuild. They're looking to be a contender down the SEC just like everybody else. So, again, Michigan's fine. Don't worry about anything going on up there. It's the basketball team you want to look at.
Definitely. And speaking about that, we're bringing it in right now since Ethan, you brought it up. Hunter Dickinson trading his Wolverine skin to fly with the Jayhawks in Kansas. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Because obviously, we're months away from basketball season. We won't see the real impact of this for a while. But your guys' just initial thoughts on Hunter choosing to be a Jayhawk?
It's a great fit. It's sad to say that, obviously, because I didn't want him to leave Michigan, but it's an unbelievable fit. Last year, I mean, Kansas plays pro basketball. throw it into the big guy, let him dominate, let him facilitate. It's exactly what Hunter Dickinson did at Michigan. It's exactly what he'll do next year at Kansas. They return a bunch of players. Kansas is going to be scary.
Drew?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great fit. It's good for him. He took a step up. I mean, Kansas is like tier 1 college basketball program, so
Absolutely, they
good
are.
for him.
Ethan?
Yeah, I think this is going to be fantastic. Hunter Dickinson in Kansas is going to be huge. He's going to draw butts and seats. He's going to be a draw. He's probably going to be one of the best players on their floor, which is saying a lot for the program that Bill Self runs out there. They also brought in Arterio Morris from Texas. He was originally a 5-star rated point guard. I know they had a few guys transfer out that were just kind of deep bench players. Zubi Ejiofor, 4-star power forward, put his name in the portal Friday night. I don't know if that was because he was scared of Hunter Dickinson or not, but I don't think Kansas is going to be a 1 seed next year. Just looking at the preseason stuff, they're going to be nasty.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think it's a great fit for Hunter to be in to be a Jayhawk. One of the most historically, stable basketball programs that we've seen, right? I mean, year after year, you're talking Kansas, right? Kansas basketball. I mean, you're talking Kansas, your Dukes, your North Carolinas. Those are your, typical blue blood, blue collar, your we call them the purple rain chips at the casino because they're your $500 to $1,000 color chips. He's one of those guys, Or that's not he's Hunter is going to a program where you're getting a purple rain chip. So I feel like he's hit the lottery for his career. He hit the lottery of transferring to a Kansas style program. So I think it's going to work very well out for him. The last thing I want to touch on here, guys, before we move on to our other topics that we have here for everybody, is NIL within the portal. How big of a decision would it be on you guys personally to choose a school who's going to offer that NIL deal versus maybe going to a program where you actually are a better fit for their defensive schemes or offensive schemes, where you may get the most production? How much is that really going to play into your guys' decisions on where you would transfer with the NIL now playing a huge part in college football? Anyone?
I mean, I'll kick this one off.
All right.
I think for me personally, I think that being a competitor, being at someone who wants to compete at the highest level, I want the challenge, I want to win. I want to go where I'm going to fit in and where we have a chance to win. Everyone loves money. And if you go to those places, you're going to see your share. It may not be the lure money that they want you to come to these other schools, but you're still going to see your bag of cash handed to you. And I think I would rather go where I have a chance to win consistently versus just bringing home all the money.
Ethan or Corey or Drew?
My priority list would be scheme fit / coaching staff, because like if you go to the right school with the right coaches that will develop you in the system that'll work for you, you're going to make the money in the NFL. So, I mean, getting 30 grand right now is not a huge deal, especially when you're on scholarship. Everything's paid for. It's really just side money, beer money. But I don't.
I mean, that Natty Light's getting more expensive, I hear. Heard it's no longer 10 for a good old 30 that we got, back in college.
Well,
Keith Stone, baby.
Just get some of your buddies to throw in. That's all it is. But NIL is obviously it's going to be a big factor for a lot of kids. I mean, these kids have never had their own money. maybe they come from rough backgrounds, poor backgrounds. They want to get some money, help the family out. That's cool. I respect that.
I mean, if you're a defensive lineman at Colorado, you're definitely that type of an individual from what Coach Prime says he recruits on that position. Have you seen that? Have you guys seen that?
Mm-mm.
Coach Prime said,
No.
if for quarterbacks and offensive linemen, I look for two-parent homes. How well, what is this kid doing outside of football? Like, is he in trouble? Is he doing these things? He goes, oh, on the defensive end, no, my defensive lineman, I want a single mama household. I want somebody who's going out there who's going to kill somebody because he needs to make it for his mom.
Fair.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
so I was just saying, like, to your point, Drew, I mean, that's kind of what Coach Prime's, coaching down there, depending on what side of the ball he's looking at. But go ahead.
No, I mean, I think I'm done.
Okay.
I just, if you're, I don't want to say it's like a character issue, but like if you're only looking for the bag, I probably don't want you on my team. I don't know.
I don't disagree with that at all. Corey, how would NIL impact you when you're looking to transfer to a program?
I mean, for me, I wouldn't be transferring. That's just the way I was brought up. You go to a place, you commit, you stay there regardless of where you're at. That's just who I am. That's what I would do. But I mean, I think it depends, really. It depends on what matters to you more. A lot of these kids dreamed of going to the NFL draft, so NIL is just something that's going to be along to help them buy fancy things while they're in college. I don't think really it kind of depends. If you're a top corner at a smaller school going to play at a bigger school is clearly going to make a difference to show how good you are and obviously let you play at the next level. So I think it just kind of depends. I mean, you see what rookie contracts are now. Bryce Young, the number one overall pick, got what, 40 million guaranteed.
Jeez.
You're not going to get that in NIL. Not going to
No.
get that in NIL. Doesn't matter. LeBron James' son commits to USC. He's evaluated at 5 million. Okay, so you're not going to get 40 million in NIL. So I think it just kind of depends. It's a fit. Obviously, seems like it would be better to get you more recognition, things like that. But some of these kids, if you're going to be a 7th-round pick projected, maybe not even, NIL is something where you're going to make your money 2-3 years, save it up, and you've got something, So it just kind of depends on where you're at. If you're top level, I don't think NIL matters. Guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., regardless, if NIL wasn't NIL, he would still be walking around with a Rolex on his wrist because of who his dad was.
Right.
It's a matter of, for him, it's not about money. He dreamed of going to the NFL and wants to be an NFL draft pick. So he went the best place where they develop wide receiver talent, regardless whether he was in California, Florida, or at Ohio State, he was still going to get the bag, regardless.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with everything all three of you said. My answer was a combination of what Ethan said, what Drew said, and what you said, Core. Ethan said it's more of schemes going to, being the competitor, right? Wanting to compete. Drew was like, it's the scheme for him, going to a place where he fits in best. Corey, you said it was, what would impact Drew was, I'm not transferring. This is the way I was raised. I committed to this university and this school to program for 4 years. I'm going to play 4 years for this program wearing that jersey. I agree with everything on all fronts there. I think NIL is good, but it can also be bad for for players who are just out there trying to chase a bag, right? Because as you three all said, you can make your money in 3 years when you go to the league. You're not making $40 million, in college, right? That paycheck and that bag comes later. So I definitely agree. It's probably best to go where you're going to fit in the best and bet on yourself and your future that you're going to be in that first round of the NFL. Speaking about the NFL draft, we had it was a wild draft, to say the least. I want to start my little thought on the draft, and my biggest thing was watching Will Levis sit there for hours on Thursday night, waiting for his name to be called. Said he was going to go number 1 or number 2. Well, he did go number 2 in the second round, right? Um, so that was a big, big thing that I saw with Will, out of the NFL draft. There was a couple surprises to me, going through the first round and everything. But guys, what stood out to you for the 2023 NFL draft? Um, we don't have to cover all the Big Ten 63 players that we, mock draft, but just some of the Big Ten players that went, where they went. Do you think that's going to be a good fit for them? If so, why? If not, obviously give us that reason as well. Whoever wants to kick us off on the NFL draft, go ahead.
I'll lead us off.
All right, Core.
For me, the biggest takeaway was kind of the smaller schools had the draft, had the high draft picks. Kind of, obviously Illinois and Northwestern's guys go in the top 15, so that was good. But it was like the smaller schools. Iowa had a bunch of picks. Illinois had draft picks. Just kind of the smaller schools. You obviously knew Stroud, Smith and Jigba, a couple guys from Michigan. You knew that they were going to go in the first or second round regardless, just from top tier talent. But to me, it was schools you weren't expecting to potentially maybe have guys go in the first or second round, went in the first or second round. I think the steal for me was Joey Porter Jr. I thought he was a first round talent coming into last year. I think he was a solid pick. Unfortunately, he's with the Steelers, which obviously, makes sense. But I thought he was a first round guy and didn't go in the first round. The other thing for me, I like the DJ Turner pick for the Bengals. Obviously, I'm a Bengals fan, so Michigan to Cincinnati is a great thing for me. I just think DJ Turner went high because he ran fast the combine. I think he's a solid cornerback, but I think he probably was a third or fourth round pick, and then he runs 4.26 in the fastest at the combine, second round pick.
Absolutely. Drew, your thoughts on the 2023 NFL draft?
Well, I had a blast watching it. I got a couple fun facts and then a couple steals. So
I'm a Rose Space me, man.
So shout out to Northwestern, who had 4 draft picks from a team that went 1-11 last year. I don't know how that works, Patty Fitz, but all right. Purdue led the state of Indiana with 5 draft picks, the most since 2005.
Too sweet.
Indiana with a solid goose egg, 0 draft picks.
Not too sweet.
Not good at all. They are currently the longest. What is this? The longest first round draft pick drought. So Iowa State defensive end Will McDonald was taken in the first round by the Jets. So Iowa State had the previous record. Indiana has not had a first round pick since 1994. Yes. And then my biggest shock of the draft was in the 5th round at pick 149. I believe it was the Green Bay Packers selected Sean Clifford, quarterback, Penn State.
That was
utterly shocked he got drafted. He got drafted ahead of Tanner McKee, Max Duggan, and a Jaron Hall from BYU. But I was just amazed that he was drafted, period. Good for him, though.
Good for him.
A couple steals here. Corey Trice Jr., the cornerback from Purdue, went in the 7th round to Pittsburgh. The Steelers had a great draft. They really love the Big Ten. The Cleveland Browns had a pair of steals, I think. Luke Weipler in the 6th round.
Yes.
Amazing. And then DeJuan Jones in the 4th. I didn't expect him to be there at all. So I'm pumped about that. I think Jalen Duncan, the tackle from Maryland, he also went in the 6th round to the Tennessee Titans. I think that's a really good pick, really good value. And then Tomi Adebawore in the 4th round to Indianapolis, I think is a steal. I think he's going to be a dog for the Colts.
Drew or Ethan. Ethan.
Pardon me. Yeah. As a Colts fan, a little biased there. I love that. I love the 2 Northwestern picks late, Adebawore and Evan Hull. I was really hoping for CJ Stroud at 4, but I did not get so lucky there. So see what Anthony Richardson brings to the table.
Better
For
hope he
me,
doesn't hit the roof in the and what is it, the
I know.
RCA Dome or
Well,
Lucas Oil?
no,
It's Lucas Oil
I
now.
mean, RCA Dome's a little outdated, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
So, also noted, great draft for the Big Ten as a whole. Pittsburgh stole the show also as a whole. 7 of the first 20 picks, Big Ten. 15 of the first 50 picks, Big Ten. Loved to see that Jair Brown to San Francisco in the 3rd round. He was one of my favorites. I also think that if Christian Gonzalez didn't fall to New England where he did, that Joey Porter Jr. and Deontay Banks would have been bumped up a little bit. So I did not see Joey Porter Jr. going in the 2nd round at all. And Ronnie Bell in the 7th round seems like a steal for San Francisco, also, especially as a receiver to breed and move up. Cleveland with Whitler in the 6th, fantastic. Other than that, the Sean Clifford thing, just as a Big Ten talent. Now, we're not talking quarterback talent. I'm talking as a Big Ten talent drafted above Chase Brown. You can tell me he's a better football player than Chase Brown is. Drafted above Whitler, above Bryce
Dewan
Behringer,
Jones.
above Ronnie Bell. I mean, there's players that he was drafted above as a whole. I don't understand, but there's people that get paid to know more than I do. Well, here we are.
I don't disagree. I can't believe. I mean, how long did we watch Sean Clifford for, guys, at Penn State?
Heck,
4,
six
5,
ever. Yeah,
six ever, 6 ever,
Yeah.
right? There was not one game in the past 6 years watching Penn State where I was like, damn, Sean Clifford's good. You know, it was always just like, this dude is just, I don't even want to say average because I feel like that's a slap in the face to like average quarterbacks because I don't think he was even average.
I don't think that he was better than Trace McSorley
No.
by any means. Trace McSorley was leagues above Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford was just a manager at that point,
Yeah, no
a game
doubt.
manager.
No doubt. Another thing, and I just don't understand. You're Green Bay. You just got done with arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks to play in the NFL with Aaron Rodgers, and then you go and get this below average quarterback. It doesn't make very much sense to me why you would take him there. Especially if you were looking at a quarterback. I mean, you could have taken one in the 2nd round. You know what I mean? But I digress with Green Bay. I don't know what they're doing up there anymore. Now,
Rebuilding.
I guess
Full
you
rebuild.
could say that. Core. I was rewatching our mock draft where we were talking, you know, obviously where we thought these Big Ten athletes were going to go. You said it then that Ronnie Bell's knee injury, I think it was an ACL if I'm not mistaken, tore it. That was going to hurt his draft stock. Do you think that's what really caused him to go down to the go in the 7th round instead of being that 3rd or 4th round wide receiver?
I think it came down to kind of needs for teams. I think they might not have had him as high as some others. I mean, obviously, I think his body of work kind of hurt him because he only had a really good 1 year basically after the knee injury. I don't know that the knee injury put him in the 7th round, I think he potentially was kind of a steal. Obviously, solid player, catches almost everything. But I mean, obviously, he had a monster start to the game before his knee injury,
Right.
and he was poised for a huge year. So I think maybe that potentially not having the 2 solid years hurt him.
Absolutely. I see, and I was just like looking here, and I was just seeing, a couple late third round wide receivers that were taken, right? You had Michael Wilson, wide receiver out of Stanford. He went to Arizona, and then you had Trey Tucker, wide receiver out of Cincinnati. He went to the Raiders. In my opinion, Ronnie Bell is better than both of those guys. I feel like his route
I,
running ability is better. His upside, going into the NFL is going to be better. I think he's a wide receiver that you can move around the field in the NFL. He could play in the slot, he could play on the outside. And that's just my opinion. I think, don't get me wrong, Core, is drafting Ronnie Bell in the 7th round an absolute steal? I think you fucking robbed a bank when you did that. Shit, you almost, you know what I mean? Like, you robbed a bank when you did that. But I just think if he wouldn't have had that ACL injury, he would have been in that late third round, even with his body of
yeah,
work
I
that
mean,
you were talking about.
yeah, I mean, I think he could have obviously been. I mean, I don't. It's hard because I don't think he was obviously Ronnie Bell wasn't even probably top 10 best receivers in the Big Ten this past year. So I
Oh,
mean,
he
it's
definitely was.
unfortunate. I don't think so. I think you have a bunch of sophomores and juniors who were better than him. Obviously, I think Charlie Jones was better than him this year. So I mean, I think Charlie Jones going ahead of him didn't surprise me. Obviously, I think Ronnie Bell should have maybe gone in the 5th or 6th round. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say if he would have, I'm looking at his 5 year career right here. Freshman year he played 8 games, and then 12 games, 6 games, 1 game, and then 14 last year. So if I were a pro team, that's not that says you're injury prone. So that's probably what dropped him so much, because I would think he would probably be a 4th round wide receiver if he were healthy. But if he can stay healthy, I think it'll be a steal for the Niners.
Okay. Um, Another thing here I just wanted to go to get an opinion on here was Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois, gets drafted 5th overall to the Seattle Seahawks. That was a surprise to me. I didn't think he was going to go in the top 5. Especially, to Seattle, who needed really big help at wide receiver, right? To get somebody next to DK Metcalf there. Obviously, Seattle got that opportunity at pick 20 when they took JSN out of Ohio State, but it was I thought, if anything, they would go JSN and then Witherspoon. Do you guys think they maybe went corner because they didn't think Witherspoon would be there at pick 20 when they had their second pick in the first round and they knew Jackson would be based off of team needs above them?
I don't think they knew Jackson Smith-Njigba would be there at 20. I think that was kind of a surprise to most people. Um, but I was surprised that they went cornerback at 5, because their defensive line's pretty trash. And Tyree Wilson was sitting there, Jalen Carter, just some real like franchise trench guys. But I do think Witherspoon is worthy of the 5th. I had him at 6 or 7, so I don't think it's too big of a reach.
Core?
Yeah.
Or Ethan, did you think that was
He's
a reach?
Oop, go ahead, Corey.
I mean, I it didn't surprise me. I mean, I thought he was the best corner in the draft. So I mean, for typically some guys reach. Last year the Jets took Sauce at 4. So I mean, it's just it's kind of where the league's going. It's what they needed. I mean, I also think Houston trading back up to take Will Anderson at 3 maybe changed some people's minds ahead of them, and I thought maybe it's just about what they had up there. I mean, when you think of Seattle being good in the NFL, their back end secondary was unbelievable. So, to build that back up, I mean, I think he's obviously worthy of it. I mean, maybe a little early. I thought, they potentially could have gone maybe inside. I thought maybe Jalen Carter, because I didn't think Jalen Carter was going to fall out of the top 3. But he's definitely worthy of it, and he was the best corner in the draft. So surprising maybe a little bit, but I mean, it's Pete Carroll, defense first.
All right. Ethan, your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't think that was an issue. I had him, and everything aside, I had him going the next pick to Detroit, so I really didn't see too much of an issue with Devon Witherspoon at 5. It was a need for Seattle. And even if you bulk at the 5 and take a Jalen Carter or even a Paris Johnson Jr., if you're lucky enough to get Will Anderson before Houston does what they do to get Will Anderson at 5, at 20, you would have still had a huge pick of whatever you wanted. You will still would have had, in this year's instance, JSN, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston. You're going to have a strong receiver there at 20. I mean, you could have even waited till 20 to take a Deontay Banks or Joey Porter Jr., who I still didn't think was going to be there. I mean, you are still going to have a huge quantity of quality athletes sitting there at 20. So I think at 5, you just take who you want, fill your biggest need, whatever you're looking for, if you're Pete Carroll or the Seahawks upper management, and go from there. So I don't have any issues with it. I mean, I think they got the 2 best picks that they wanted off the board, and I think they got 2 franchise players. Probably a little biased on both. 2 are very strong Big Ten players.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to move on from the NFL draft. It's done, over. Actually, before we move on, there's one thing I do want to talk about. Is Philadelphia just becoming the Northern Georgia Bulldogs? I mean,
Alabama on offense, Georgia on defense. How you going to beat that?
Yeah.
It just seems that's the way they're going.
Georgia's defense was the best defense in college football the last 2 years. Only makes sense to take as many of them as you can.
I don't disagree.
2020 Alabama offense. That 2020 Alabama offense is possibly the greatest team we've ever seen.
One of them.
No, and all these guys already have chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know each other. They've played with each other. They've caught passes with each other.
They have to be. Well, they have to be the favorite for the Super Bowl, I would assume.
Core.
I just think, I think Philly kind of got lucky too in the draft. Jalen Carter has some character issues. He was not falling out of the top 5 if he doesn't have character issues. Nolan Smith, if he doesn't get hurt and plays football last year, he's a top 10 pick. So it's kind of just luck of the draw of where they were. Jalen Carter in every single mock draft coming into the season, without character issues, is number 1 overall, 2 at worst. So I mean, just kind of, things happen, and Philly is taking a lot of risk. Obviously, Jalen Carter with the character issues, things could happen and escalate, and he might not play that much anymore. Nolan Smith is coming off an injury. He looks super healthy and looks super fast, but again, injury prone, had multiple injuries at Georgia. You use a first round pick on him, and if he only plays a couple of downs this year because of injury, it's not that great of a pick. So right. It just they luck of the draw of where it was and what's kind of happened with them.
Yeah, I agree. And to double back on what you said, Super Bowl odds across the board, no bets book on the internet has the Eagles at better odds than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still across the board favorites, and there's a couple of books that actually have the 49ers above the Eagles in Super Bowl betting odds.
Wow.
All right. All right. I'm going to close the show for our last topic here with kind of a fun one here for us to do. I asked all the guys to not rank, just select 5 teams, okay, your top 5 teams, football teams out of the Big Ten from the year of 2000 up until 2020. So we got a 20-year stretch to pick 5 teams. Core, we're going to start here with you. In your 5, no particular order. Again, no particular order. Just who were your top 5 teams?
I have 6 actually because I had a tie.
Okay.
So too close. I
Same
have
here.
the 02 Ohio State, 02 Ohio State, 06 Ohio State, 2014 Ohio State. I have 2013 Michigan State, 2005 Penn State, and 2006 Michigan.
Okay. Alrighty.
Nice.
I like those. I like that. Drew?
I also have the 2002 Ohio State. I have 2014 Ohio State. I have 2005 Penn State. I have 2013 Michigan State. And I have 2017 Wisconsin. And then I have 3 shout outs: 2006 Rutgers. Shout out Mike Teal, Ray Rice. 2001 Nebraska. Eric Crouch wins the Heisman. And then last year's Michigan team.
I like it.
Nice.
Ethan.
Yeah, it's hard to not include any of the teams mentioned before, so I'm probably not going to deviate too far. I did have one on my list that wasn't mentioned. I also completely forgot about this segment till about 10:05 this morning, so kudos to me there on that great one. But yes, in no particular order: 2014 Ohio State, 2006 Ohio State and Michigan. I think that's a tie for me. I mean, those are 2 premier
Iconic
teams
teams.
when we were growing up. Yeah.
1 versus 2.
That's right. That was the game. 2013 Michigan State, and then one that no one had, and I actually looking into it, was one of the premier rosters and teams of. Don't look at their schedule, but 2016 Penn State was absolutely loaded. They did lose the Rose Bowl to USC by 3, 52-49, won the Big Ten. They were 11-3, lost on the road to Michigan, beat everybody else. They lost all 3 of their major road games, including at Pittsburgh. But DeAndre Tompkins, Trace McSorley, Chris Godwin, Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley, Marcus Allen was on this team. This team was top to bottom absolutely huge in the NFL draft. Juwan Johnson, Mike Gesicki. I couldn't leave them off my list.
I like it. The only team that I felt was deserving that you guys have not mentioned, because on my list, obviously, I had 2014 Ohio State, the first ever college football playoff champions, 2002 Ohio State, who beat the All-Pro Miami Hurricanes. I mean, they had Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball. That Miami Hurricanes team did. I had a tie, obviously, with 2006 Michigan and Ohio State, the 1 versus 2 matchup. Those 2 teams are iconic, in my opinion, for Big Ten history football. Like you guys said, the 2013 Sparty team. But the team that I felt that was not mentioned that definitely deserves a spot in the top 5, in my opinion, is 2000 Purdue, led by Drew Brees, Rose Bowl champions. If I'm not mistaken, that's probably one of their. I mean, in my recent, actually, that's probably their only major bowl game that they've won since 2000 was with Drew Brees. That program has. So I felt that it was only right to put in that Purdue team when they are a Rose Bowl champion. We know out of Big Ten guys, we know before the college football playoff, it was you go to the Rose Bowl, right? That was our marquee end of season goal was if you weren't playing in the BCS National Championship, you better be playing in the Rose Bowl. And I think you cannot leave Purdue off that, especially when they were led by one great quarterback in Drew Brees. Um, so there's our top five, if you will, of all Big Ten teams from 2000 to 2020. Um, I felt like I feel like we nailed the great teams, in the conference coming out of this past decade. We made sure we included the national title teams and everything, so great job on that. Anybody else had any honorable mention before we get to Corey's big break Big Ten athlete of the week?
I got one honorable mention. It's not football related. University of Illinois golf team, 8 straight Big Ten conference championships, 13 of the last 14 and 20th overall. I mean, kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal.
Damn. Yeah, I got one more too.
Go ahead, Drew.
It is football.
Thank you.
The 2002 Iowa Hawkeyes went 11-2, led by Brad Banks, had a 1,000-yard rusher in Fred Russell. Shout out Iowa.
All right. Corey, it's time. Who's the big break Big Ten athlete of the week this week?
So this week I went to a sport that I used to play in high school in men's lacrosse. I'm going with Braden Erksa, who is a freshman attacker from Maryland. Maryland unfortunately lost the Big Ten tournament championship to Michigan 14-5 yesterday. But they weren't really supposed to be there. So Erksa this year was voted the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He had a 10-game scoring streak this year, which was the longest in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten tourney that they ended up in the championship, he had 5 goals and 6 assists, all 6 assists coming in their first round matchup against Rutgers. And this year he led the team with 43 total points, 22 goals and 21 assists.
I like it. Congratulations. I like the lacrosse shout out there. I know what we were talking about, who you were gonna pick earlier in the week. You mentioned this guy, how he had like 8 goals, so far in the tournament. I mean, I've watched lacrosse and it doesn't seem like scoring in lacrosse is very easy. Corey, I mean, you played it. How hard is actually lacrosse to play?
It's I mean, at the college level, it's very tough to score, especially with the talented defensemen that they have. It's all about ball movement, how fast you can get to where you're supposed to go in the spot. As a freshman though, to have 43 points, 20 goals and 20 assists, that can't be easy to do. Not many people are doing that as a freshman. So, he was highly recruited from IMG Academy. So, he's from Georgia, transferred to Florida so he could go to school and be well known. Maryland is not necessarily known as a lacrosse school. They're up and coming, but, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed. So, props.
I like it. Ethan.
That's nice. I was looking here. I was just keeping up with his athlete, and then I saw that the women's lacrosse team also was in the Big Ten championship and lost. So both Maryland lacrosse teams are on the up, it looks like.
That's great. One last thing here before we head off here, and I let you guys get back to your Sunday. It's a giveaway, y'all. It's giveaway, y'all. Petey Jones, running back.
The running back,
y'all. Just like Petey said, he was gonna rush for 1,000 yards that year, right? 1,000. Well, we ain't asking for 1,000 on our show. We just asking to get to 100. If we can get to 100 subscribers, we will have a giveaway for everyone. We are working on. Corey and I are working on getting a merch guy lined up so we can get some hats, shirts, and all that kind of good stuff made, some koozies, stickers, all the above type deal. But once we hit 100 subscribers, everyone, we will have a giveaway of all you'll have to do to qualify is be subscribed to the channel. We'll have you like the video once we hit that 1,000 subscribers, make a comment, and we'll select the winner and hopefully be able to, we'll reach out via email to that winner to get all the necessary information from them, from you guys, to be able to get that little gift basket sent out to you. Guys, I appreciate your time here on this Sunday morning as always. We are ramping up for a very great college football season that I can't wait to cover with all you guys. I do want to make a quick announcement though, before we do end it here, that coming football season, Saturday mornings, starting at 9 a.m., you will see Corey and I on our YouTube channel here live. Basically, our version of college game day. Corey and I talk every morning of Saturday from 9 to 11 on the phone. 2 hours of him and I just walking around our houses, BSing about what's going on in college football, and our own college football game day essentially is what it is. So we're going to bring that live to you guys during college football season. Drew and Ethan are going to be out on the road. They travel to different games, different stadiums. So we'll be going live to them when they are out on the road, going to get talk to some fans. So if you guys see them there, give them a shout out. We'll get you guys on and everything of that nature. So we can't wait to ramp up for college football season. Guys, peace out. Life's a garden. Go dig it.
Be good.